Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello there, Shipping Podcast listeners. Welcome back. This is the 66th episode of the Shipping Podcast. I passed my 2-year anniversary and now I'm on a roll. Today I am going to introduce you to a maritime director, Melvin Matthews from Eniram. I met Melvin when I went to the Shipping 2030 conference in Copenhagen on the 22nd and 23rd of March this year. I was invited to be on a panel. That was the reason for me being in Copenhagen. Kate Adamson, who you can listen to in episode 35, invited me to be on a panel and talk about the human of shipping, as she thinks that this podcast gives the voice to the people who you would never hear otherwise from the maritime industry. I didn't know what to expect, but when I arrived in Copenhagen, I walked into a room full of people who were like-minded. I was so amazed to see so many people in the same place that thinks about the same things that I do, and who has actually started their journey. Some have reached very far, and some have just started the journey of digital transformation. I got so many new friends and people to look up to and people to work with and so on. I would say that being invited by Kate to join her on stage, that is something really great. And the people who are invited, yeah, I love them. So, without further ado, you should listen to Melvin. He has so many good things to say. He's got so many insights to share with you. And he's so good. Listen to him and then follow him on Twitter. This is Melvin Matthews for you.
I'm Melvin Matthews and I'm the Maritime Director at Eniram. We were acquired by Wärtsilä in July 2016. So realistically, we are the youngest members of the family. So we are the little baby.
And where are you based?
I'm based in the UK, in London. And of course, Eniram is head office in Helsinki. So that makes sense because Wärtsilä is a Finnish company as well.
So what is your background? Are you an engineer or?
I'm not an engineer. Sometimes I wish I was, but I work for a big engineering company that is suddenly looking at being agile and digital. But my background is from seafaring. So I'm an ex-captain, master mariner and seafarer. And then I joined ship management and ship owner to manage the ships from ashore. So I was managing big VLCCs and sometimes ro-ro cum container ships, so conros. And thereafter, I switched sides in a way and started with Eniram, which at that stage was still an early startup. So I've been with them for 6 years. So that's my trajectory in terms of my work life, yeah.
So how did you come in contact with shipping from the beginning?
Even before I joined Sea, I had a connection with the sea because my father was in the Indian Navy. And we got transferred all along the coast in India. So I went to several schools. So wherever he was posted, we were uprooted and taken to a different place that spoke a different language and had different culture and different food and different songs. And it's like in Europe. India has so many states which have different languages and different cultures and different food. So I guess I was multicultural even before I joined Sea, and sort of got to work and travel in different countries. So that's how I got to Sea, because my dad was a mariner, and so I guess I ended up being a mariner. And I'm the only one who ended up being a mariner because my other two brothers do different things. One is a doctor and the other is an analyst who works for a bank and now for a startup.
That is usually the way you end up, either by accident or you have seen this, or your family is in the business, shipping industry. So
yes,
it's interesting to hear what my guests are from. So what are the biggest changes that you have seen during your time in the shipping industry?
Enormous amount of change. Even from the time I was sailing to the time I worked ashore to the time that I now work for a technology company. And there's been change in all different areas. So as a seafarer, I saw changes where We let go the radio officers because communications were brought in by GMDSS, which the crew could operate, and we didn't need a radio officer who relied on Morse code. Then we saw changes where the numbers of crew reduced from 50 or 60 right down to below 20. So there was huge change, not just in manpower, but in technology and communications. I remember I used to make a call home as a cadet once a month, or if it was somebody's birthday at home. But now you don't need to call home because you can WhatsApp or Skype, and you can do it every day. And I actually see crew picking which company to work on depending on the communication capability. So it's not about the salary, it's about how they can be in touch with their near and dear and with their friends and things like that. So huge changes. When I worked managing ships ashore, and to an extent things haven't changed as well. And the things that haven't changed are things like known reports, which still happen. The technology is there to have real-time information on ships, but these companies and managers still insist on known reports, which for a shipping company having 24 ships in the world is getting a known report every hour because it is sent on the known of the ship and not on the known of the office who's going to analyze it. So that hasn't changed. The technology is there, but there's this lethargy to adopt and implement. But then there are technologies which are taken on board. So they do look at, early adopters are looking at how to digitize the ship, how to use the data. Very early days, but how to get value out of it, how to use it not just for maintenance and performance and efficiency, but I think the smarter ones are even looking at how to use it from a business advantage point of view. So that transition is happening, but as in any other industry, I can say that there are early adopters, there's people who sit on the fence and watch, and then there's people who said that nothing's going to change ever. So there's the whole spread of different appetite for how they want things to change. So it's fascinating. But even in the technology world, now when I work for a technology company, I think the mindset is changing, and I see it more not just in technology but in people. So when I look at companies and the management and the C-level and the board, the demographic there in the last 6 years has changed. So you have the baby boomers now retiring or semi-retired, and you have their kids who probably Gen X or Gen Y who are taking over, who probably no connection with shipping. They're probably Ivy League schooled, and they have friends in Silicon Valley. So they are more adept at social media and sharing, unlike their predecessors who in their own right were billionaires, but nobody knew about them. Very, very under the radar. The new generation wants to be out there, and they speak freely their mind. So there's no hidden, read between the lines kind of discussions. It's absolutely brutally honest, and I think there's more purpose in what they do. It's not about money fully. Of course, they do want to make money in business, but I think they also have a purpose beyond that, about consciousness of the environment and temperature rises and CO2 emissions, and they want lower carbon footprints. So I see that, and I think that's fascinating. In the past, if you wanted to access the CEO of a company, there were so many roadblocks. You know, to go through a secretary or a PA. Today, you can contact one of those young CEOs directly via Twitter. You know, drop him a line, and of course, it's up to him if he wants to respond or not. But at least you have the accessibility, and that is changing things dramatically. You know, the smallest member in one company can reach out to the highest member without going through the chain of command. It can be via social media. You have direct links. And that to me is extremely fascinating. And we live in this jargon-filled world of smart ships and smart equipment and smart devices. And it's people who make them smart. It's people who use them smartly. Technology is just an enabler. Equipment, assets help you to make money and help you to provide services. But it's people who make it all happen. It's people who talk to one another. I always say that you can have the best technology in the world, but if nobody uses it, it's worthless. And it's people who sell products, and it's people who buy products. So no matter how digital we get and how much artificial intelligence and machine learning is there will always be people who will sell. I know there are the Amazons and all that, but you know, robots will not buy stuff from robots. It is people who will buy stuff from Amazon, although there is no real seller there, a physical person. But there will still be people involved.
So how do you see the future for shipping in general?
Oh, I'm obsessively positive, and I have hope. Although, you know, when you come to events and conferences and seminars, there's always this information overload that you have about this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and you don't see this and this is happening in other industry. And unknowingly there's a negative impact on it, that somehow this is going to disrupt the whole place. But I think human beings are very resilient, and even if you feel left out in one area, it's very easy for you to catch up in another area or change track altogether. So the future, I think, is very bright. The only thing is the pace at which things are happening has changed over the last few years. I think the younger generation is a lot more smarter than we think, although they're not given enough credit. And they respect only two things. One is skill and one is know-how. And the reason I say that is when I send an email to one of the millennials in our organization, I'll send an entire page explaining it, and I use it just like I used to write a paper letter. I say, "Dear so-and-so," and I end with "best regards." But the answer I get is "okay" or "yes." And initially I was a bit taken aback, but I now realize that they are just efficient with communication. It is, the other day I heard that if we knew how much money was spent in trying to arrange email, we wouldn't actually do it. The new generation uses Snapchat and other software, and they are used to acronyms and simple one word that explains the whole thing. So why should you spend so much time reading so many emails when the whole thing can be summed up into one word? And I think these kind of efficiencies are something that we should maybe embrace, so we can actually devote time to things that really mean something or have an output.
But that must mean that we need new leadership.
Yes. We do need new leadership, I have no doubt about it. But the leadership should be visionary, and there's no point having vision if you don't have passion. This is my honest belief. And it should be collaborative. So I think the new way of working forward is not just working together and satisfying your customer. I think with technology, it's not about satisfying your customer. It is about exciting your customer. And that is the most important thing. Why should I only be satisfied by you? I should be energized, and I should be motivated, and I should be excited about working with you. And I should wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, great, I can work with you today." And I think that is the new paradigm. It's not about how do I satisfy my customer. That's so old. And that perhaps worked in that time when you worked only with, you thought only about your customer. But if you can get your customer excited and feel that they are giving value to their customers, that is really exciting, and that is where things should be. And I think the new generation likes that. They like working only in areas that interest them. And I even think that the millennials or the post-millennials will work in different companies in specific areas that really interest them. So if you look at my job profile or anybody's job profile, there's stuff that they really like doing, and then there's other stuff which doesn't interest them, but they still are forced to do it because that's part of their job profile. I think the millennials or Gen Z or even the alphas will say that, this is what I want to do. I will write code, and I will write this particular code, but I will do it for 4 different companies. And with connectivity and communications, I can do that from anywhere in the world. I can sip a tequila in the Caribbean and do it. So wherever they go will be their place where they work, and that's brilliant. So I don't think they will work in brick and mortar offices, going there every day, working 9 to 5. I doubt that.
How do we become more visible? I mean, the shipping industry is often looked upon like the Cinderella industry. No one knows about us.
I think that will change. The new generation will change that. So that's not going to last. I think.
Yeah, but we need to attract them first.
We do need to attract them, and I think social media is a huge area that's developing change. I know you have a big following. I'm a big fan of yours, and I wish I could tweet and be on social media like you. And
you can.
I am.
It's a matter of practice.
I am, yeah, and I guess it's an extension of your personality as well. So I also use social media, and I try to connect with my group, and I try to share information. So I'm one of those people who shares information. So if I find some information or an article that I've read, and I feel that this could really benefit people, and I share that freely. And sometimes nobody reads it, and sometimes 20,000 people read it. But
that's exactly how I started, because I was reading so much, and I thought because I never retweet anything that I haven't read myself,
yes.
or tweet anything.
Yeah.
So when I started to do that as a part of a business intelligence, I thought I better just put it out there.
Yeah,
I've read this, and this is interesting, and read it if you want.
Absolutely. And I find that fascinating that people do take the time to read, because everybody's busy. But if they still take the time, and if 10,000 or 20,000 people have done it, then they find value in it. And again, I always think that in social media, your fan base or your follower is actually a reflection of you. So it's like your shadow if light is shown on you. So they basically are of similar mindset and similar mentality and have similar ideals and thought processes. So a lot of people who follow you and follow me and follow other people who are more vocal in social media are people who are have similar interests and similar ideas and a similar view on things. And I always think, why not share?
So what is your Twitter handle? We need to get that out there now.
My Twitter handle is Melvin S. Matthews, but I'm still getting used to people on Twitter and tweeting. I have about 400 followers, but I'm more active on LinkedIn. I have about 30,000 followers, but that's probably because I started there earlier, and I'm a newbie to Twitter.
So, yeah, but there are a lot of shipping leaders who are not on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
they haven't understood it, that is the world's best address book.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's an address book that is not filled out by you, but is filled out by them.
Exactly. So who would you be interested in listening to in a shipping podcast? Who do you think I should meet the next time?
This is a good question, and I haven't thought about it. But if I would like to listen to people who are keen to enter into the shipping world. So the people are looking at shipping from, let's say, Silicon Valley, or somebody who's looking at how they could utilize shipping to enrich their customer experience, how they can contribute to shipping and make it much more efficient, perhaps from their learnings in other industries. I think that is fascinating because you get an outside view. Being within the shipping industry, you always get the view from people who are within shipping. And I'm always looking out for people who bring fresh air and bring in new ideas.
Yeah, but that is, we have a tendency to speak to each other,
yes.
The people in the shipping industry.
Yes.
And we don't tell anyone else. We don't talk to other people.
Yeah.
And then we complain that no one knows about us.
Yes.
But we never tell about us.
Yes.
So since I started the podcast and put it out on iTunes for everyone to listen to wherever,
yeah.
I hardly ever speak to anyone in the shipping industry anymore.
Yeah.
Because I get so many people contacting me and they say, oh, I have this great idea. Who should I turn to? Or shipping is such a closed industry. How do I get in contact with people?
Yeah. No,
we are missing out.
This is fascinating. Traditionally, I would have expected that it's people in shipping who listen to your podcast. And my experience is sort of similar-ish. As in, I have some friends in Amazon, for example, and I said, just discussing over a meal about what their thought of shipping is. And they were saying that we have these warehouses all over the world. And we could actually use ships as warehouses. So we don't need any brick and mortar warehouses. And that's, from their point of view, that's how they would imagine using ships. So if you take a wider set of people and ask them how they would use shipping and ships, you'll get so many amazing ideas. Not just hotels. We're already using hotels as ships in the way of cruise ships, but warehouses and manufacturing units. If you have, the latest printing technology and you put them on a ship, then you can use them as manufacturing platforms. You have a floating factory. And as the demands increase and decrease in different parts of the world, you can actually move the ship to that part of the world. There's a lot of fascinating information that comes out of talking to people who don't have anything to do with it. And in a way that is information from outside the box. And we are this shipping box, we need to look out of. And I, more than anybody else, or perhaps as much as other similar people, I'm always looking out. And I like that. And perhaps because I've spent most of my life in the shipping industry, I want to see what else is out there that we can make to change. And that's the optimist in me that comes out to say that what else can we do to improve not ships but the entire industry, make it more efficient, enhance the performance of the whole industry, because then everybody in the industry benefits. It's not only ships but ports and logistic providers and forward trade and traders and everybody. And at the end of it, that benefit goes to the end user. So when I order something on Amazon, that's because, and I get it cheaper, it's because the whole supply chain has become more efficient and performance has gone up. So we do live in fascinating times, and with rapid changes in technology, there's uncertainty and there's disruption and there's all that. And it's people who are in the middle of all that, in the thick of things. And we are the ones who are, in a way, affected the most, but we are also the ones who create that effect. So I think our focus is should be on people, and let them do what inspires them and motivates them, and just facilitate them, and they will do what they have to do. And people talk about 2030 or 2050 and beyond, and even if you do something about it or don't do something about it, those time periods are going to come and they're going to go. So why not do something about it and be part of that journey rather than sitting back and waiting for it to come and hit you. So that's my take on it.
Thank you very much, Melvin. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you, Melvin. You are not the youngest kid on the block. Neither am I. You're probably younger than I am, but I think that we know a little bit more than our peers what the young people think. And that is so important. Speaking about young people, I don't know if you remember, but early June at Nor-Shipping in Oslo, Young Ship Oslo proclaimed the 10 women to watch for the future in shipping. And that was 10 women in the age under 40. I have decided that those are the women that I want to interview during the autumn. So I have made arrangements. 6 of them are in Oslo, 1 in Singapore, and 2 of them I will meet when I go to the Vista International Conference in Rotterdam early October. I think that this industry deserves to listen to these women. They have been recruited by the companies who thinks that they can contribute to the future and the success of their companies. I think that they can contribute to the future of this industry. So I contacted my friends at Splash 24/7, and they are willing to carry portraits of these young women for you to read about, or for your peers who hasn't discovered podcasts yet to read about. You will hear them here in my podcast during the autumn and early next year. But I'm still looking for someone to sponsor this, because it will take some time and it will take me some traveling. So if there is a company out there who thinks that I bring something to the industry and thinks that these women should be featured, please let me know. You can either send me an email at hello@shippingpodcast.com, or you can go to my Patreon site. That is, if you think that this podcast brings anything to you, you can support it. Go to patreon.com/shippingpodcast and read more about it. I have put up my goals there. I want to make an app for this podcast and develop the concept even more. There is still 1 episode to go from my visit to Copenhagen. But for now, I leave you. In 2 weeks' time, you will listen to the next one. So, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.